Have you ever wondered what would happen if Yuji Itadori was reborn with every single memory of his past life completely intact? What if the moment he opened his eyes as a newborn, he already remembered everything, every fight, every loss, every person he failed to save? Every time Sukuna wore his face like a mask and did things that made him want to scream? What if Yuji got a second chance, not just at life, but at fixing everything that went wrong the first time around? Well, in this timeline, that's exactly what we're about to find out. Before we dive in, 2 important rules. First, Yuji retains every single memory from his previous life. He knows exactly what is coming, who is going to die, and when. Second, because Yuji spent his entire childhood secretly training with the knowledge of a seasoned sorcerer, his power is significantly ahead of where it was at the same point in the original timeline. Think of it this way. This is a Yuji who has been preparing for war since he was old enough to throw a punch. With that said, let's get into it. Our story begins the day Yuji is born. The hospital room is ordinary, bright lights, the smell of antiseptic, a newborn crying. Except this baby is not crying the way babies cry. He is crying the way someone cries when they have just survived something terrible and cannot quite believe they made it out, and the memories crash over him all at once. Shibuya, Nanami, Nobara, Sukuna's laugh, prison realm, all of it. And he makes a decision before he is even an hour old. He's not going to let any of it happen again. Growing up the second time is strange in a way that is almost impossible to describe. He goes to school, he eats enormous amounts of food that alarm every adult around him. At night, alone, he trains. Not like a child plays at training. He works with the focused intensity of someone who has already been to war. His body is frustratingly small and new, but the knowledge is all there. Gojo's movements, Nanami's lessons, every mistake he made that cost someone their life. He runs through all of it, night after night, building toward a version of himself that is ready before the timeline even begins to demand it. By 15, he is somewhere the higher-ups have no category for. When they slide a small box across the table, he already knows what is inside. Sukuna's finger. He closes the box, pushes it back. The room goes very quiet. Gojo arrives shortly after, looking like a man who finds this genuinely funny. He sits down, tilts his blindfold up, and looks at Yuji for a long, quiet moment. "You already know what that thing is," Gojo says. Not a question. "Yes," Yuji says, "and you know what saying no means." "Yes." Gojo leans back, and that smile appears. "All right," he says. "Then let's figure out another way." It is the first time in this timeline that Yuji feels something close to hope. Jujutsu High is familiar and strange in equal measure. Megumi is exactly as he remembered, already doing threat assessment on every room he walks into. Nobara is loud and completely uninterested in being impressed by anything. Seeing her alive and arguing and completely fine is the kind of thing Yuji has to look away from for a moment, because the relief of it is almost too large to hold. Training with Gojo is a completely different experience the second time. In his original life, those sessions were exercises in humiliation. This time, Yuji keeps up. Not perfectly, but enough that Gojo starts pushing harder every week, wearing an expression that sits somewhere between impressed and deeply suspicious. "Have we met before?" Gojo asks one afternoon, completely casually. "No," Yuji says. Gojo looks at him for a long moment. He says, but he does not fully let it go. Yuji can tell. Junpei Yoshino. Yuji knows his story by heart, knows the timeline, the location, the moment Mahito enters the picture. In the original run, he arrived too late and could do nothing but scream. This time he is there 2 days early. Mahito shows up exactly when Yuji knew he would. The fight tears through 2 city blocks before Mahito escapes into the chaos. Yuji sits in the rubble with cracked ribs and blood on his knuckles, frustrated that Mahito got away. But Junpei is alive. He gets up, he keeps going. Nobara nearly dies on a mission 3 months later. Yuji had marked the date in his memory, the moment he was old enough to understand calendars. He steps in front of the hit meant for her, takes it full force, and wakes up in the hospital 2 days later. She is sitting beside his bed, rigid, uncomfortable with whatever she is feeling. "You didn't have to do that," she says without looking at him. He thinks about telling her the truth, about the other timeline, about the world where he was not there. Instead, he just says, "I know." She looks at him, studies his face like she's trying to find the answer to a question she cannot quite form. Then she looks away. "Idiot," she says. He takes that as the thank you it is. Shibuya comes whether he is ready or not. He moves through the station like someone reading from a script only he can see. He knows who is where, what is about to go wrong, and in what order. He eliminates threats before they can complete their plans. Gojo is sealed at 9:26 p.m. Yuji gets there at 9:27. 60 seconds too late. He stands there and breathes through it the way he has been breathing through things he cannot change for an entire second lifetime. Then he turns around and focuses on everything he still can fix. Jogo is the one he has been thinking about most. In the original timeline, Jogo force-fed him Sukuna's fingers, and what followed was the Shibuya massacre. Thousands dead, the city burning, Sukuna walking through it all like it was nothing. Not this time. When Jogo moves to flank Maki, Yuji catches his arm mid-swing. There's a half second where Jogo processes what just happened. Then Yuji speaks very quietly. Dismantle. Jogo is gone before the sound finishes, leaving his mouth. The sorcerers standing around him go completely silent. Yuji looks at their faces and says simply, "I'll explain later. Keep moving." Mahito is the one Yuji has been saving something for. He finds him alone. The fight is completely one-sided from the first second. Yuji has run through every version of this in his head more times than he can count. He knows every way Mahito moves, every trick, every escape route. When Mahito tries to run, Yuji is already there. He leans down close and says quietly, "Remember the name, Yuji Itadori." Then Black Flash. Kenjaku arrives and takes one look at Yuji and immediately understands he cannot win this fight. He tries to run. Urami steps forward to buy him time. Yuji barely glances at him. Black Flash. Urami disappears over the horizon. Kenjaku activates the culling game as a last desperate move. Yuji lets it happen because he knows the culling game is the only chain of events that leads to Angel. And Angel is the only way to free Gojo. The massacre never happened. The thousands of civilians who died in the original timeline are alive, completely unaware of what almost happened beneath their feet. Nanami is alive. Nobara is alive. Megumi never faces the worst of what the original timeline put him through. It is not perfect, but it is so much better than before that Yuji has to stand very still for a moment and just let himself feel that. Weeks later, the sorcerers find Angel through the culling game, exactly as Yuji knew they would. The prison realm opens. Gojo steps out, looks around at a world that is largely still intact, looks at Yuji and says, "I feel like I missed something. A few things." Yuji says, "Are we winning?" Yuji looks over at Nanami, alive and irritated and completely fine. At Nobara arguing with Megumi about something that does not matter. At a sky over Shibuya that is not on fire. "Yeah," he says, "I think we're winning." And that is the answer to the question we started with. What if Yuji was reborn with his memories? He wins. And more importantly, everyone else gets to win with him. If you enjoyed this and want to see more alternate timelines, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments who you want to see next. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.